a lot of people might have gotten pretty bearish on Bitcoin because it just simply hasn't really done anything for quite some time. And we're used to being in the range, and when it hits the top of the range, now we're getting kind of scared. But I just wanted to let you listen to what I said on Spaces just about 24 hours ago.
Also, a couple of other things I feel very bullish about Bitcoin. One thing is that MicroStrategy over Bitcoin chart looks very, very beautiful. If you're telling me that the leverage play for Bitcoin, like MicroStrategy, if it's outperforming Bitcoin, and you can look at the chart, you can do the pair, you can look at it. It has been outperforming Bitcoin over the last few weeks. It makes me wonder, like somebody knows something. It makes me feel that this is actually more of like a recovery, kind of like an early mid-cycle feel to it.
If the leverage plays for Bitcoin, which includes MicroStrategy as well as Coinbase, if they're doing well, it really does make me think that we are still in the midst of a longer term bull market. On the weekly chart MicroStrategy, you did have a bullish cross on the oscillator. You don't like the weekly because, yeah, things cross, so what, right? You can still go down further. I'm going to zoom out to like the 2 weeks. On 2 weeks, you can also see that you might be having an impending bullish cross over here too on the trend oscillator. And you can see that pretty much every single time we have a trend oscillator bullish cross, it goes up by a lot. Like it doesn't matter what in what sense. It tends to go up by a lot, right? I think we might have another leg up happening relatively soon. And that also is being seen here, especially on the MicroStrategy over Bitcoin chart. You can see the pretty significant bullish cross over here on the 2 week chart on MicroStrategy over Bitcoin. So it does make me think that we might be a little bit in the early cycle here to mid-cycle. I would say probably mid-cycle. If you look at Coinbase, Coinbase chart is also doing a very, very similar thing. It did look like it broke this trend line over here, and it did look like it's about to have a bullish cross here on the 2 week chart. On the weekly chart, it already had a bullish cross, you know. And if you also look at the Coinbase over PDC chart here, I do want to show you this very beautiful symmetrical triangle over here on the Coinbase over PDC chart. We had a breakout and we're simply just back testing it this week, and we almost back tested almost perfectly. Right now the trend is up. So there's a potential Coinbase to continue to outperform Bitcoin moving forward. Just looking at the fact that it broke above this symmetrical triangle to the upside and back tested it pretty convincingly for Friday. You know, I can't really be that bearish on Bitcoin at this point. I mean, can it do some sinister things? Sure it can. The weekly candle is not closed until Sunday evening at around 8 p.m. Eastern time. But it does look like we're having a little bit of a bullish crossover here on the weekly. Now, the 2 week chart is not as beautiful for Bitcoin compared to, you know, for example, MicroStrategy compared to, for example, Coinbase, right? But you're looking at a situation in which these leverage plays for Bitcoin actually is looking more bullish than Bitcoin. That really makes me think that maybe the whales know something, because MicroStrategy and because Coinbase are going to be more likely to grab liquidity from whales just because it's easier for them to go in and out of it. Now, if they're going to end up pumping these stocks, and if Bitcoin itself also like might have a bullish cross by the end of the week to next week, which again, like we still have 2 days, right? And weekend is low volume. Who knows what's going to do? They could potentially dump it all the way down, and there's some pretty important support levels here that I still wonder whether or not we're going to end up back testing, right? For example, there's some Super Ichi and Ichimoku Cloud levels with the Tenkan Kijin all the way stacking to about like, you know, $63,136. I don't know whether or not we're going to back test this week. I don't know whether or not next week we're going to having a back test. I do not know any of that, right? All I know is that if we close above all these different lines over here, and all I know is if we also close above the boring support band this week, and the top of the boring support band right now is 65,631. If we're able to close above all of this, that really confirms my hypothesis that it does seem like the whales know something, and they're pumping these leverage plays like MicroStrategy and Coinbase ahead of time. Now, if you're asking me in terms of targets for MicroStrategy and Coinbase, I mean, I like to really touch the 1.618, break above this arc over here, and potentially break about this angle over here. You know, you got a lot of resistance up here, all the way up to maybe around the 2000, 2100, 2200 range. Once you're able to break above that, you really could talking about potentially like 4, 5, 6,000 range up here, and even 7,000 potentially. But we're still stacked against a bunch of resistance right now. We still need to get through over them before we can really say that we're going to hit some of these targets up here. When it comes to Coinbase, I think that we have more or less been ready to kind of break about this range over here. And when we're breaking about this range, the next stop's probably going to be around like 350 to 400, somewhere up here at the bottom of this arc. And also 350 was also where it got rejected last time here too, right after his IPO, right? So that could potentially be a resistance level. 350, 400 would be a big one because you have a lot of, you have previous all-time high close to 400, 430, and you also have the bottom of the arc right here. So that's all be a potential, big resistance. But from like 250 all the way up to like 400, you're talking about like some 70% gain here. And for those people playing options, it's like, absolutely incredible. Once you're hitting above all of this, you're talking about like 400, 500 being, a good ultimate range. Then the cycle potentially end around like 1,000 to 1,200, somewhere around there. It's not impossible. Nothing is impossible. Does it look like it might exhaust by the time it gets there? I think it will. But so far you have a very nice trend oscillator, something positive over here, and this whole move up like here, had been initially on bearish divergence, and right now the bearish divergence is almost completely played out. If anything, I think you're building a lot of these kind of like hidden bullish divergence that's going to allow price to really continue to push up higher. And I think the whole trend might end up exhausting all the way up here, somewhere around 4 digits potentially. But before we get that bullish, we have to get through a lot of resistance levels that we have yet to get over. But the trend on the week and on the 2 week is looking, pretty fabulous for both MicroStrategy and for Coinbase. Now, if that's the case, I just cannot be that bearish on Bitcoin. The miners have been really kind of taking a hit. I believe is because IWM initially looks like it wants to break out, and it did kind of break out, with the exception that I think it just kind of went way too far, way too fast, and it ended up getting rejected right off the Bollinger Band over here. And it looks like a very, very bearish kind of candle with a big giant wick above. And a lot of people are going to end up getting scared by these kind of big giant wick above. They're saying this is a toppy candle. Toppy candle looking thing are not really toppy unless it was the top. I just want to show you what I mean by that, by just showing you a past Mara chart. I think IWM probably has room to go up. Now, can this be a top signal? Can it go sideways down further before going up further? Possibly. But I just want to look at like the last bull cycle here. I'm going to turn off all this crap. I'm going to turn off the Bollinger Band. If you just look at the last bull cycle, how many candles do you have that has a big giant wick above? That ends up just keep going higher. Big giant wick above that ends up keep going higher, especially these two candles over here. Like all of these giant wick candles, all of these giant wick candles just ends up pushing price up higher, right? Until it doesn't anymore. Matter of fact, there's a way to actually look at these uptrends and downtrends and try to see whether or not wicks above are actually bearish or bullish. It's actually an interesting thing to look at. Now, you have something called the Fibonacci candle, which basically averages the current candle with the past candle. Like, it basically averages two candles together, right? And during an uptrend, your wicks are above. You have bulls really trying to challenge the price and try and push price up higher. During a downtrend, wicks are below. You have bears trying to challenge the price down lower, right? And the Fibonacci candle is really showing this very, very beautifully, right? So I'm actually not sure about the whole, you see a big giant wick up above, it's going to be bad. It doesn't always play out that way. I can totally see that, people would say that, but it doesn't always have to play out. So I'm not really that particularly scared of IWM, but I do think that IWM has been holding up miners because it's just simply get way too far extended. The trend is still very bullish, and it just kind of started on both the weekly and the 2 week. On the monthly, it also continue. It looks like it also wants to continue to curl up. So I'm not yet bearish on IWM. I actually think it's probably going to end up maybe having some consolidation, which is fine. For a few weeks, I don't care. But something big, I think, has happened, and I think that the whales are really in IWM at this point. I don't think they're playing around anymore, both in terms of the monthly as well as on the weekly. But I think this is a pretty significant change. If it goes down further, if it goes down and close some of these gaps down below, then so be it. But it would be a higher low, and if it's a higher low, that means that it's a bull trend, and if it's a bull trend, that means buy the dip. To me, anyway, not financial advice for you. And unfortunately, I think the IWM is kind of holding up miners, but that's okay. I've been patient. I would continue to be patient. None of this is financial advice to you. I'm just basically journaling what I'm doing and my thoughts. But to be honest, this does look like a pretty bearish candle, doesn't it? So I would probably not do any crazy short-term options. I would probably just end up holding shares because this may mean something, it may not mean anything. I just showed you it didn't mean anything during pretty much the entire bull trend of Mara going up. So I just want you to be, a little bit cautious, be aware of both sides, and just don't get fudded out, but don't do anything crazy. Be responsible because something like this can be bearish. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.